All right. We got game 6 tonight of the NBA Finals. Warriors up 3-2. Where do I want to begin with this series? I guess I'll start from my early prediction right before the series started. I picked Warriors in 7. I was very impressed by the Boston Celtics. This is nothing against Boston. When you pick a team in 7, you're basically saying these are even teams. You just feel like the home court advantage is probably going to play a factor, or you feel like that other team has that slight edge. But whenever you're picking a team in 7, you're not that confident in that team, which I wasn't. I wasn't confident in the Warriors in this series. I wouldn't go and bet big money on Golden State to win the NBA Finals because of how good the Boston Celtics have been. I just felt the Warriors would have a little bit more. I felt like the offensive struggles for the Boston Celtics, the Warriors are the worst team to play against when you have stretches of inconsistency on offense. When you have a team, and we'll get into the total problem, and I don't want to harp too much on the problem of the Boston Celtics. Like, when you make it to the NBA Finals, and I'm picking you to lose in 7, you're a pretty damn good team. It's pretty hard to find flaws on this team, but every team has their flaws, and we'll get into some of those flaws of the Boston Celtics and what I think those flaws cost them in this game that just took place on Monday. In that game 5, the game that they really, in my opinion, if they would have won that game, it was over. The series was over. Boston would have finished it out tonight. But I do think Boston will win it for a few reasons. Number one, everybody knows when you're on the road, your bench typically doesn't play as well as when you're at home. And for the Boston Celtics to be able to generate enough points against the Warriors, they need to have better bench production, right? 1 point from Derek White in game 5, 3 points from Grant Williams in game 5. That's not going to cut it. You need more than that. Those guys typically play better at home. Most teams, their bench plays better at home. That's one reason I think the Celtics will win. They will be able to generate more points off the bench. I think Jaylen Brown might be due for a pretty good game. Watch him scoring somewhere around 25 plus tonight. But more importantly, it's because of the referees. Not saying that the refs won the Warriors game 5, not saying that they robbed the Celtics of that game or something of that nature, but referees do have point of emphasis. They do have reviews where they have to look back over the game. They get sent submissions and they are looking at particular plays. And there were a lot of plays in that game where they got duked. The refs flat out got fooled. The Warriors were able to fool them, had a lot of fouls that just were basically phantom fouls. They just weren't there. They didn't happen. The refs got duked. The refs fell for the flops. They gave the Warriors a few of those. Trust me, those are going to be in the film and what they're going to be reviewing. And refs do not like to be duked. They don't like to look stupid on national television. And they did a few times thanks to the acting of the Warriors, in particular, Gary Payton a few times on some of those flops that they called his way. Also gave Marcus Smart a technical on a play where he's clearly frustrated with the officiating, with how they're refereeing the game and the fouls that they're getting, which is hysterical when you think about Marcus Smart and his flopping and why he doesn't get a lot of calls himself is because of that reason. But I think that's going to be a point of emphasis today. I think tonight in Boston, the point of emphasis is going to be like, hey, we cannot let the Golden State Warriors duke us into these calls anymore. So I believe that you're going to see some calls from the Warriors. You're going to see some lack thereof calls for the Golden State Warriors, plays where they might be actually getting fouled and the refs are letting it go. Hey, you got us last game. You made us call some really bad calls because you guys were doing a good job flopping. We're not falling for this time. So this time, there's going to be some plays where you get hit and we're not going to hold on to that whistle. We're not going to blow it, and you're going to be frustrated and you're going to be upset with the calls. I truly feel that way. Not saying they're going to win the game for Boston, not saying that the Warriors have no chance because the refs are out to get them, but the lack of calls are going to favor Boston, and Boston's going to know this. Boston's going to come out very aggressive. Boston's going to play even more physical than they did in the last game because they know that this is going to be a point of emphasis for them. And this is going to help Boston, in my opinion, tie it up 3-3 and head back to Golden State, where, again, when you're in a game 7, anything can happen, anything at all. But coming into the series, there was a reason why I picked Golden State. But last game should have changed the script. last game should have made me switch my vote to Boston because I never expected Golden State to be at home and Steph Curry have the as bad as a game as he had, and them somehow doing enough to win the game, especially on the defensive end. The Warriors didn't win that game because they were playing like the Warriors. The Warriors won that game in large part thanks a lot to Andrew Wiggins. He stepped up. He played incredible. Let's give all credit where credit is due. Andrew Wiggins was awesome in Game 5. But in no way, shape, or form can you limit Steph Curry to what you're able to limit him to. In no way can you force him to have one of the worst shooting nights I've ever seen Curry have, especially in the playoffs, especially in the finals, and you still lose the game simply because the other team was more physical, got in your head, you're turning the ball over, you're playing terrible. The Celtics didn't lose that game because Andrew Wiggins' heroics. They lost that game because they just kind of lost their legs, they lost their head, they got into a match between them and the refs instead of them and the Warriors, and they just couldn't muster up enough points, especially in the fourth quarter. I don't know how you score 35 in the third and 20 in the fourth if you're the Boston Celtics, but that continues to plague them. They keep struggling in the fourth quarter to score. They had that one fourth quarter, game one, in game one where they ignited, had an amazing fourth quarter. Since there, they've been struggling in the fourth, and this is going to continue to plague them. They got to get it done today. Obviously, it's a closeout game for Boston, but I like them in this closeout game. However, this series should be ending tonight. This should be a closeout game for the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics should have a 3-2 lead, and they should be closing it out because of the horrible play and because of, in large part, with how well the Celtics defended in their game plan to get the ball out of Curry's hands to be able to step up even further out on those pick and rolls. They were forcing guys like Otto Porter, they were forcing guys like Draymond Green, and they were forcing guys like Andrew Wiggins to make shots in order to beat them. Credit due to Andrew Wiggins. He made enough shots, he made enough plays to beat the Boston Celtics, but it shouldn't have been enough. The Celtics still had really good defense going into the fourth quarter. They were still playing a well enough game, and especially the way they ignited in that third, you would think that the game was going to be over, and here we go, headed to Boston for a closeout game, and didn't happen that way. Now, roles reversed. Boston has to defend their home court in order to stay alive and push it to Game 7. And that leads me to how I felt about the Celtics going in. I picked the Celtics in every series up until this point. I picked them against the Nets, I picked them against the Sixers, and I picked them against the Heat, simply in large part because I saw a lot of Boston Celtics this year. I saw the switch. I saw it turn post All-Star game. I believe that they were the best team in the NBA post All-Star break. Something just happened where they started playing better team ball. The trade was a big trade to acquire Derek White and bring Daniel Tice back. I thought Daniel Tice adds a little bit more familiarity, and even though Daniel Tice is kind of an undersized center, he still adds a little bit of a physical presence where it's not just Al Horford or Robert Williams, and he seemed to be effective, especially when Robert Williams was hurt earlier in some of these series. But then the other one was Derek White. My dad is a diehard Boston Celtics fan, and I told him when they acquired Derek White, I was like, "Oh, you're gonna love this guy. He just plays the right way." Coach Popovich system, obviously, you see why I love Derek White, but he just plays the right way. He's a smart player. He can do a little bit of everything, pretty versatile, 6'4" point guard. He can guard he can guard the point guard, shooting guards if you need him to. He's a good defender, very crafty on offense. He can get to the rim. He can shoot a little bit. Not prolific. He's not great in any one aspect of the game, but he plays the right way, and he can do a little bit of everything, whether it's handling the ball, whether it's shooting, driving, defending certain positions. He can do a little bit of everything you need him to do out on the court, and that was going to be a big boost to the Boston Celtics. And since that trade, it seemed like the team just started gelling a lot better. Marcus Smart started becoming a little bit better of a playmaker, and I just doubt that they were the best team going into the playoffs in the entire NBA. Going into the playoffs, they played better than anybody from All-Star break till the beginning of the playoffs. So when they played against the Nets and everybody was worried about the Boston Celtics and we don't know how this is going to go, I was like, I think Boston's going to win the series. Now, did I expect them to win it in 4? No. But the thing that surprised me the most about Boston, what gave me a lot more confidence in them moving forward, was their ability to It's rare. Obviously, it's rare when a team can sweep another team, a 4-0 sweep. That's obviously rare, but it's even more rare when they do it when the games are that close, when they're winning by small margins, when every single one of those 4 games were determined within the last minute of the game. It showed me that they have the ability to win tight ones, to make the better decisions in crunch time. And that's hard to do when they're playing against a team in Brooklyn that you would figure with NBA champions on that team. They have Kyrie Irving, who's won an NBA Finals. They have Kevin Durant, who's won multiple NBA Finals. They know what it takes. They know how to make those decisions late in games, and they have some veterans around them as well. I felt like they took that extra step forward in becoming a championship team and having that championship pedigree by winning every single game by such a close margin of victory. To sweep a team when every game comes down to the wire, it just shows that you're just making better decisions. You're the better team in crunch time, and that's going to load well. Now, against Milwaukee, if you remember back, I did have an episode during that series where I picked Boston to win it. I said Boston in 6 going into the series. And, the main reason for that wasn't because I thought Boston was such a better team than Milwaukee. I just felt like Milwaukee was missing too big of a piece to overcome, which was Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton, to me, he has to be that reliever for the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is obviously going to lead the way. He's going to do with his thing. But Chris just takes so much of that scoring load off of the rest of the team when he can easily go for 30 on any given night. And I felt like the lack of him was going to be too much to overcome. It kind of was. I mean, they still played fantastic, pushed the Celtics. The Celtics ended up getting past that series, and then I picked them against Miami. I picked them in 6, if I'm not mistaken, against the Miami Heat. Miami pushed them to 7. I honestly thought Miami played better. I thought Eric Spoelstra proved that he was the best coach out of the Eastern Conference this year. Eric Spoelstra might, in my opinion, be not the best coach in all of NBA, but in terms of the playoffs, I thought he was the best coach in the entire playoffs this year. I really didn't expect Miami Heat to give Boston that much trouble, push it to a Game 7, especially when Tyler Hero went down. Tyler Hero was the one person when I looked at that matchup, I was like, okay, that's going to be a problem for Boston because Tyler Hero is such a crafty, such a versatile guy that between the shooting, his ability to handle the ball, his ability to set guys up, the way him and Bam Adebayo play well in the pick and roll situations, it's going to relieve so much of that workload off of Jimmy Butler. Very similar to Chris Middleton with the Bucks. So when he went down and he was out for the last 3 or 4 games of the series, I was like, this series is over. There's no way. And to my surprise, they pushed the Celtics to Game 7, and the Celtics did what they needed to do. It was a fantastic series. But going in, there was reasons why I picked Golden State, and there's reasons why I just feel like why I felt like Boston will still not get over that hump. Now, again, I don't want to harp too much on the downfalls of the Boston Celtics and make you feel like I'm saying that Boston just isn't a great team and talk about what they're lacking. It's hard to say what a team is lacking when they're in the NBA Finals, right? When they're 2 wins away from winning the NBA Finals, it's tough to say what they're lacking. But when you look at this team, it's the same thing that plagues them every game, which is the turnovers. And the reason why they have such issue with the turnovers is because the 2 guys that you want the ball in the hands of turn the ball over like crazy. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown have improved steadily since getting into the NBA, but neither one of them are ball handlers. Neither one of them are Tyler Hero. Neither one of them are those type of guys who you can trust where it's almost like they're a big point guard at some points. Neither one of them are. Neither one of them are great ball handlers. They have a lot of issues returning the ball over. And the thing that I've always said about the Boston Celtics is you have 2 guys that like to score from the same spots on the floor. They score in the same ways. They don't feed off of each other. If they both have really good games, which is rare, most of the time when you look at the Boston Celtics, go back and look. Go look at the score sheet. Go look at the stats. It's very rare when both of them have great nights. Usually only one of them does. The other one might have a decent game, but usually only one of them have a really good game. And the reason for it is because their partnership, their relationship on the court for the Celtics is very your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, which puts a lot of pressure on the defense, and it is hard to stop two of the guys that can do the same things, that can score from the same spots on the floor. Yes, it adds some problems, and it's nice to say, hey, when one of them's out, we can run the same sets and go through the same thing with the other guy, right? If we sit Tatum down, we can do the exact same things that we were doing for Tatum. We can do those same things for Brown and vice versa. And I get it. That's nice. But at some point, you want your two best players to feed off of each other. You want them to set each other up. And they just have a hard time doing it. They just aren't those type of guys. They just aren't those type of playmakers. Now, Jason Tatum has surprised me at times this series with his playmaking abilities and his passing. He has good vision. He can make the passes. It's just the ball handling aspect. Time and time again, when I see the Celtics give up a run, what usually starts the Warriors, what ignites the Warriors' runs in this series is when Tatum starts the turnovers. When Tatum has 2 turnovers in 4 possessions, that's usually when you see the Warriors create the big runs, create the 10-0s, the 12-0 runs, where, again, the Celtics just don't have the scoring to be able to combat that. Too many times the Warriors get on these big runs, and it's just like they'll chip away. The Celtics will chip away, but they don't have the explosiveness to say, okay, just you got a 12-0 run, here comes our 12-0 run. They don't really have that explosiveness to do so. And I still feel like a true floor general, a true point guard would help this team immensely. I love Marcus Smart. Man. I love everything about him. But he's not that point guard. Having somebody that can set these guys up and dictate the pace of the game, dictate where they're going to be, how they're going to get shots, I think would benefit the Boston Celtics immensely, even if that means not having Jaylen Brown and having somebody else. Now, you would have to have somebody that made up for Jaylen Brown's scoring production in tenfolds, but I still think that would benefit the Boston Celtics, or having a big that you could go to, which, again, causes problems because I am such a big fan of Robert Williams. I think that's the other thing that we might see more of this game is more Robert Williams, less Al Horford. Al Horford's had a couple miserable games. Last game was really bad for Al, not just from a scoring standpoint. He had 9 points last game, which isn't great, especially in times where they kind of need him to be the third best scorer. They kind of need him to at least muster up something. But when you're Al Horford and you're the big in there, you're 6'10", you're not being guarded by Draymond. There's too many times where Al Horford has Klay Thompson on him, or he has Otto Porter on him, or he has one of these guys on him, and it's just like the fact that you can't take advantage of that size of, these are not bigs. These are not centers or power forwards. You are a legit power forward / center in the NBA. You have to be able to take advantage of it. And too many times do I see the size advantage and the post-up advantage that the Celtics try to take advantage of is Marcus Smart. They try to get Marcus Smart posting up Jordan Poole or Steph Curry when I'm like, that's Al Horford should create that type of mismatch when he has Klay or Otto Porter Jr. on him. He's that much bigger than those guys. He's that much stronger than those guys. And the lack of it, I don't know if it's just Ime Udoka and the Boston Celtics saying, hey, we can't take the ball out of Brown or Tatum's hands in these situations, or if he just really doesn't have that type of post-up game to take advantage of those smaller defenders. But again, he doesn't have Draymond on him. He doesn't have, Draymond's usually on Jaylen Brown, start of the games or at points of the games where they'll have Looney on Robert Williams, and Al Horford's being guarded by, like I said, either Klay Thompson or Otto Porter Jr., whoever's in the game at the time. You need to take advantage of that. Work your way back into inside offensive rebounds. Even if you're not getting the post up, you got to get some offensive rebounds. 9 points when you have somebody who's 6'6", 6'5" on you, it's not good enough if you're Al Horford. He's had a bad series, and pile that up with his turnover problems that he's had of himself. Pile that on top of the fact that the camera is picking on him every time in these pick and rolls, how he consistently falls underneath sags too far down on these high screens. That's allowing Steph Curry and Jordan Poole to have these pull up threes where Horford's just sagging too much off. Now he corrected that a little bit in the last game, but you can't correct it in game 5. You know what I mean? Like, expect Robert Williams to have a little more impact on this game. Expect for him to have more minutes than Al Horford, because I do think Robert Williams creates that impact. Even in the less minutes that Robert Williams played, he still had more points in 10. He still had more rebounds. And he even had more assists. So go with Robert Williams in this upcoming game if I'm Boston, because of his impact defensively. And if he's going to give you one more point than Al Horford, who cares if that, who cares if Robert Williams' 10 points comes off of offensive rebounds and free throw line, and Al Horford's 9 points comes from the 3-point line. We don't care at this point. Points are points. And if he's going to be that impactful on the pick and roll game defensively, then Robert Williams is the guy that has to be in there in those stretches. And then, like I said, Grant Williams and Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, they got to give you something. They got to give you more than the 4 points they gave you last game. They can't, those 3 guys can't combine for less than 5 points this game. They can't. You're going to lose, even at home. Even when the refs are going to hold that whistle for a lot of the Golden State Warriors fouls, you still are going to lose at home if Derek White, Grant Williams, and Peyton Pritchard gives you 5 points. You're not winning like that. Not in the NBA Finals. Not when Jordan Poole's coming off the bench. Not when Gary Payton's being as aggressive as he is. Not when Otto Porter can knock down open shots when he has to. You're not going to be able to win when that team can put up points and can generate points like they can. So that's why I do think Boston will win this game, but I still see those issues that they have, and just, it's gonna suck. But at the same time, like I said, harping too much on the Boston Celtics, sometimes we can feel like the Celtics have just been, because they've been clawing at the door for such a long time. Multiple Eastern Conference Finals appearances. This is their first Finals appearance. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown's first Finals appearance. But I believe they've gone to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 or 4 times since entering the league. So we feel like they're always there. We feel like they're so close, but they can't quite grasp it yet. Both of those guys are under 26 years old. Brown and Tatum, neither one of those guys are 26 yet. I think 24 and 25. So they have so much room to grow. They are barely starting to enter their prime. And trust me, a series like this is going to play well for them in their future. A series like this is going to show them exactly what they need to work on, because it's been showing them, right? Those past Eastern Conference Finals has led them to make it to the finals this year. Those past Eastern Conference Finals losses have shown them, this is what I need to work on, and this finals appearance is going to show them even more. Okay, now this is how teams are going to guard us. This is what people feel like, this is how they take us away. This is what they need to force us to. And there's specific things, especially in the finals, your downfalls or your poor tendencies, your bad tendencies, they get highlighted so much that it forces you to go back in the lab and forces you to correct them. And it only happens in the finals, right? If you remember I believe it was Cavaliers, Spurs finals, I believe even after, it was Cavaliers and Spurs. The Spurs swept them, if I'm not mistaken, swept the Cavs in the finals with LeBron James. And it was very clear the way they were playing defense on LeBron James, what Popovich talked about afterwards. And the next time they met in the finals against LeBron in the Miami Heat, he was like, this is a completely different person than we faced the first time. We cannot guard him the same way. He has worked on the things that we took away from him, which was the 3-point shot and those pull-up jumpers. Those are what we gave him. That's what we felt like he struggled. He doesn't struggle there anymore. And LeBron James worked on it, and even LeBron had spoken to it and said, yeah, I noticed that, like, that's how they're guarding me. That's what they're trying to force me to do. So you got to work on it. You have to work on those things. And it got highlighted in the finals. Why didn't it get highlighted before? Well, he wasn't a great shooter against Detroit. He wasn't a great shooter against, the other teams that he played, the Pacers and all these other teams leading into the finals. He wasn't shooting great against them. But it gets highlighted in the finals when you're in that last series to win it all, and that's all everyone talks about is your struggles in that series. it gets highlighted so much that it forces you to work on it even more. And I think that's what Tatum and Brown are going to do after this series, win or lose. Win or lose the series, they're going to work on it. What does the future hold for them? I'm not sure. Like I said, I think they'd benefit from it, but they're still so young that even just bringing in a guy, even drafting a guy, having those true point guards. Marcus Smart is not a true point guard. He's done a phenomenal job taking that role. But there's too many times where the ball just stays in Tatum and Brown's hands, and they turn the ball over too much. So having a true point guard that you really trust, that not only can you trust them with the ball in their hand, but you can put the ball in their hand in order to set up the other person. At times, Marcus Smart struggles with that. At times, Marcus Smart will settle for some threes, settle for some shots of his own. We were like, I would have liked it if we found a way to get Tatum or Brown an easier look here, and a true point guard would help that situation. So it's not necessarily getting rid of Brown or trading him to bring in or acquire a guy like that, but even just either picking one up or drafting somebody and having a real true point guard, something that they haven't had. I mean, even Terry Rozier, he's not the best facilitator. He's still kind of a score first mentality. Kyrie Irving, we know he's a score first mentality. Kemba Walker, we know he's a score first mentality point guard. So having a pass first, a real initiator of the offense, a pace setter, someone who can control the flow and the pace of the game, I think would really, really benefit Boston. But I don't want to see those guys leave because I feel like they're just entering their prime, and I want to see Brown and Tatum go through the thick of their prime together, because I'm really interested in seeing what that looks like. They're going to improve, guys. Nobody maxes out their potential at 24 years old. That doesn't happen. Nobody gets to 24 and looks like a superstar, and it's like, oh, that's it. Unless there's like legal troubles or an injury. Other than that, they're going to get better. They're going to get smarter. They're going to learn how to dictate pace. They're going to learn how to do all those things that maybe Golden State is making them struggle with, which on the Golden State, what does this mean for Steph, Klay, and Draymond? We know what they were capable of doing pre-KD. Right? Pre-KD, they were this young team who got put together. They were all drafted by the Warriors. They were the baby faces of the NBA, especially Steph Curry, baby face of the NBA. Everybody loved to cheer for that team, and for good reason. They were exciting. They were up and coming. There's nothing better than seeing the growth. It's very similar to what Boston has right now. And that's why the fan bases are so split in these finals. Usually there's like a hated team and there's a beloved team, right? When it was like the Raptors and Warriors, it's like, we hate the Warriors, right? Warriors and whoever, we hate them. Even someone like LeBron. When LeBron was with the Heat, nobody's rooting for the Heat except for Miami. Like, nobody's rooting for the Heat. And then when LeBron was with Cleveland and played against KD and the Warriors, it's like, let's all root for Cleveland. So there's always been that direct split. It doesn't happen when two teams are built, right? When you feel like these two teams have kind of been manifested within the organization from draft nights and just bringing these guys up, and you can remember them all playing together since their rookie year, it's harder to root against them. So I feel like it's really split this year between Boston and Golden State. And the same thing could be said last year between Milwaukee and the Suns. It was a very similar situation where you don't have a vast majority of fan bases rooting for one team in particular. It's pretty split across the country. But what does it mean for them, right? Pre-KD, we saw them grow up. We saw them become these guys that we felt like were going to win a title. It was just a matter of time. They break the single-season NBA record for most wins. They go on to the NBA Finals, and a lot of people felt like they were a Draymond nut kick away from winning the NBA Finals. They lose to LeBron James, and then everything changes. They get Kevin Durant. They become the heel of the NBA. Everybody hates the Warriors because they basically put in the cheat code, right? It's basically what it felt like. It felt like we were playing a video game and where everything's good and you put in a cheat code. You use the cheat code to beat us, and that's not fair. We want fairness in this sport. And they felt like KD was the cheat code. You're already one of the best teams. You're already the best team in the West. You were probably the best team in the NBA. Draymond Green had to nut kick somebody, and that probably cost you the series. But if you run that series back, I'm sure a large percentage of the NBA fan base would pick the Warriors to beat Cleveland in a rematch of that finals. So you didn't need KD to win a championship. At least that's what it felt like in large part. They get Kevin Durant. It's a no contest. It's a no contest while he's there. The only reason they lost to the Raptors in their last season together was because of the injuries to all of them. And that's how Toronto was able to win that championship. But now, post KD, it kind of has that babyface feel again. It kind of feels like everybody's doing it, and it's funny because I feel like people want the Warriors to win to further shit on Kevin Durant. Like, am I the only one that sees that? Like, a lot of people are like, but if the Warriors win, we get to clown on KD. If the Warriors win the finals without Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant hasn't gotten out of the first round yet, we get to clown KD and say, you rode the coattails. They never needed you. They still don't need you, and you'll never win a title without them. People can't wait to go at Kevin Durant for the Golden State Warriors winning. I've never seen that. I've never seen a team win and it be detrimental to somebody else's career who's no longer on that team. And somebody who won a championship with that team, won multiple championships with that team. But that's what it feels like. So what does it mean? Does it mean that Kevin Durant's legacy is tarnished or that it doesn't hold any weight? It may not have. For most people, for a lot of people, KD's finals wins didn't really hold that much weight to begin with. A lot of them felt like those should have asterisks next to them and saying, hey, you can't compare KD's championships to LeBron's or to Jordan's or to Kobe's. You can't compare them. Like, he didn't build the team, nor did he go to somewhere where he kind of built it. Like, it was a team that probably would have won championships without him. No other person can you make that claim for. Jordan without the Bulls, still a very good team, right? Jordan without the Bulls were the third seed in the East. They swept their first round. They went to Game 7 with the Knicks, who the Knicks ended up going to the finals that year. Very good team. They weren't winning a championship without Jordan. The Cleveland Cavaliers the Cavs would never make the playoffs without LeBron, and we've seen that. The Miami Heat, Wade and Bosh ain't winning a championship. They're not winning championships together without LeBron James. It just isn't happening. LeBron James leaves, and, Miami had to redo the entire roster, and eventually they're back to this point. They got to the finals. But the point is, you've never been able to take the best player off of a team and they have a chance to win a championship. Never has that happened. In KD's case, what we're seeing now, obviously, yes, Andrew Wiggins and some of these other guys may not, especially Wiggins probably isn't on the team if KD was still there. But you can't say, well, we replace KD with Andrew Wiggins and still won a championship. You can't let that happen. So I think it does. I think it does prove that, Steph and Klay and Draymond were not simply gifted a championship by Kevin Durant, right? KD didn't highlight these guys. They all highlighted each other. They're all championship pedigree players. Draymond obviously does things differently. It's hard to throw him in the mix with a Steph and with a KD. He's not a scorer. That's not his role. It's not what he does. He's never done that well. But he's a good facilitator. He's great defender, all-time level great defender. But more importantly, his leadership and his ability to just get under your skin as the opposing team. That is what Draymond has done phenomenally. So for a Golden State Warriors win, I do think it adds to the legacy of Klay and Curry for obvious reasons. An extra championship obviously adds to your legacy, but having one without KD's gotta feel good. It has to. If you're Curry, if you're Klay, and if you're Draymond, it has to feel good. It just has to say we got one without him. He came in, we dominated, we did what we wanted to do, we had fun doing it, but we still won one without him. That has to mean more to them, especially to those three. That has to mean more than the other championships with him, than the other 3 finals appearances with KD. It has to mean more. It would to me, right? If I'm Steph and I say, hey, I have a few rings now, and I got them with KD and we had fun and we obliterated some folks. But getting a ring without him is like, yo, it's us. Like, this is our team. We're the best team in the NBA. With or without KD, we're the best team in the NBA. How good would that feel? And for KD, I don't know if this takes away from him. Because at the same time, like, you just have to use your eyeballs, right? I do love the eye test, and when you watch KD play, it's impossible not to admit that he's one of the most prolific scorers you've ever seen. Just watch him. Just watch the games. That's all you have to do. You don't have to look at the stats. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is watch the games and make the judgment. And when you watch Kevin Durant play, you realize, I don't know if I've ever seen somebody score at this level of efficiency, the smoothness, the ability to score from anywhere on the court, to be 6'11", 7 feet, and shoot the way he does, and move the way he does, and handle the ball the way he does. It's wild. So it doesn't take away the legacy of Kevin Durant. It doesn't take away the level of player Kevin Durant is. I don't think it, if you have this ranking system and you have him at 8 or 10 or wherever you rank him, whatever number he's at, Golden State winning a championship shouldn't drop it, right? Because that ranking should come based off of what he was able to do on the court, his abilities, his skill level, all of it, leadership, anything should all be added to it. So wherever you have him should already be there. So a team winning a championship without him shouldn't drop him in your overall rankings. But I think it is going to further take away from the rings that he does have. It's going to make you go, yeah, he's a champion. You know, he's a champion. Can't take that away from him. He is a champion. But that's what you're going to say, right? It's different than when you talk about Kobe with Pau Gasol, where it's like, yeah, no, to win 2 finals with that team, like, yeah, man, they weren't by far the best team. Like, they were the best team because this man is that good. Like, they were the best team because this guy is that good. And I don't know if you can say that for the championship rings that KD has. Now, KD still has time to correct that, right? KD could still make huge runs in the playoffs, give you moments in the playoffs that make you rethink it and make you say, no, he's really that dude. If you're somebody who's questioning the greatness of Kevin Durant because of the success this season of the Golden State Warriors, it'll still do that. But this playoffs has been great, man. I've really enjoyed it. This is one of the better seasons of the NBA. I still wish that there was some more, or less, I should say. I still wish there was less injuries going into the playoffs. I would have really loved to see Jamal Murray, a healthy Jamal Murray, a healthy Michael Porter Jr. with that Denver Nuggets team. It just sucks. It sucks that we had to see, somebody as good as both of them, really, but especially the way Jamal Murray was playing in the last couple postseasons, where he started finding his stride, he started turning that corner into kind of a legit all-star in this league. To have him not play and, have Jokic out there kind of carrying the load by himself, which Jokic is a bad boy, man. He's a bad boy. But I would have loved to see a full, healthy Nuggets team. Other than that, it was a great playoffs. I think for the Phoenix Suns, this is one thing I will say. I said Eric Spoelstra was probably the best coach of the playoffs, and I stand by that. I think he was the best coach in the entire playoffs this season. But followed behind him was somebody who we need to give his flowers. We need to give the flowers up to him, is Jason Kidd. I don't think anybody expected Jason Kidd and Dallas Mavericks to be able to push past the Utah Jazz, and especially beat the Phoenix Suns. Nobody saw that coming. And yes, it's very easy for us to say, well, Luka's a baby goat, right? Luka's gonna be that dude. Luka truly is one of, if not the best player in the NBA right now, and he's only gonna be better. Like, the sky is the limit for Luka Doncic. Yes, I 100% agree. But Jason Kidd still had to make that work. They don't have the roster. They have Luka. Brunson played amazing. He probably got himself a bag this offseason thanks to his performances in the playoffs. He's probably going to get paid. But they didn't have the guys, didn't have the bigs, which shout out their new acquisition in Wood and Christian Wood. That's a big plus for the Dallas Mavericks. I felt like it's what they were missing. I thought it was what they were missing to beat the Suns. I was wrong. They still beat the Phoenix Suns even without that big presence. But I felt like it was definitely what they were missing against the Warriors. And even with Christian Wood, I don't think they're beating the Warriors with him. The Warriors are just a better team. When you beat somebody in 5 in the conference finals, you're a better team. But Jason Kidd did a phenomenal job coaching this season. Kid needs his his apologies, man. I think a lot of people wrote Jason Kidd off. I mean, this is what Kidd's third team. He was with the Nets and with the Bucks, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is his third team now in the NBA. And a lot of and early in his coaching, I mean, Jason Kidd is not some 50, 60-year-old coach. He's been doing this for such a long time, or 60-year-old coach who's been doing this for such a long time, where it's like he's had the success and then kind of fell off and then went to another team and then kind of built the team and then kind of it got stagnant, so they got rid of him. No, this is a guy who was just getting into head coaching, and it's just like just getting teams just writing him off so quickly, where I'm like, I don't understand why he's not given the opportunity to have longevity somewhere. And it seems like this is going to be his ability to do so with the Mavericks, and especially taking over for Rick Carlisle. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was always looked at as such an underrated coach, a guy who has an NBA championship under his resume with Dirk Nowitzki and those boys, a guy who's had so much success, who took over the Mavericks and basically changed that franchise, right? They were good multiple points of Dirk Nowitzki's career. They were good with Avery Johnson. They made it to the finals with him against the Miami Heat. But when Rick Carlisle took over, it kind of looked like, okay, now they have the guy. They have the coach they need to push themselves forward. And what he did that season with Kidd and with Dirk and all of them, and Tyson Chandler and that whole entire crew, Sean Marion and those boys, the way they would be able to beat the Heat, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and then that big three, it really, that was kind of his shining moment as a head coach, and that's what kind of pushed him over the top. Then he had really good seasons moving forward. So when Kidd replaces that kind of guy, somebody who's looked at as probably, one of the best coaches in that history of that franchise, and then does what he did this year, big kudos to Jason Kidd. He had a phenomenal season. And I can't wait to see what the Mavericks do next year, especially with the acquisition of Wood, with Luka coming back, with Dinwiddie, hopefully, having a full season with that team. And then hopefully they pay Brunson what he deserves to get. And they, try to move further in their progress. Another guy that I want to give big shout outs to this offseason, or this postseason, rather, is Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler is a type of guy where we all kind of know him. Jimmy Buckets, the dude can get after it. He's a dog. He has that presence. But like I said, to have the type of series that he had against Boston, it is hard, man. Looking back at that series, it's hard not to say Jimmy Butler was the best player in the entire series. Like, he put that team on his back, and the thing I loved, it was a beautiful catastrophe with that shot that basically, could have won them the game, that could have won Miami the game. That pull-up three that he took while Horford was dropping back that he ended up missing. It was beautiful to me, though, because it was like, it was perfect. Jimmy Butler was putting that team on his back. He had, 47 the game before that pushed it to Game 7, and he was just phenomenal, man. He was freaking phenomenal throughout the entire season, throughout the entire postseason, just willing the Heat to where they got to get to, showing all the doubters. Another guy, a superstar that is on his third team now, who was sent off from the Bulls, sent off from the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves gave him a bad rap. Everyone was like, "Oh, these guys." The Sixers too. I'm missing a whole another team he was on. This is another guy who was written off by so many people, and to see him come in and be the face of that franchise, the face of the Miami Heat, and have the performance that he had of this postseason, Jimmy Butler, don't discredit him. All that talk about he's not this or he's not that. The dude's a beast. The dude's a baller. The dude deserves to get the bag that he got. The dude deserves to be called the best player on the number one seed, a team that was very close to making it to the finals again through his leadership. Granted, very deep team. Not going to take that away. I'm not going to say it's him and a bunch of nobodies like Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero and Kyle Lowry and Victor Oladipo. Like, they got a really deep team. And, of course, Eric Spoelstra, like I said, best coach of the postseason. But Jimmy Butler, that shot, man, was just, the fact that he even took that shot was just perfect for how the series played out, where it was, hey, we're going to live and die with this guy, and we put our trust in him, and we have faith in him, and he has the balls to do it all. And he took it, missed it, unfortunately. That's just the way it goes. But Jimmy Butler was absolutely spectacular. I can't wait for the game tonight. This is probably going to get uploaded hopefully an hour before the game starts. So you'll be able to check that out. If not, you'll see it and you'll laugh at me and you'll say, ha ha, you said Boston was going to win and the Warriors won. Tends to happen that way sometimes. But I am guaranteeing a Celtics victory. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'll be able to come back and talk to you guys about it on Friday. So tomorrow, I'll be able to talk to you guys about it. This was supposed to come out yesterday. Guys, it's hard when you got a little one. When you got a little one that is home for the summer, it's tough. I just had some moments now to be able to record this and upload it. So it'll come out today for sure. Obviously, it's got to be up before the game starts. But Boston guaranteed for this win. I'll be back on Friday tomorrow to talk to you about hopefully what to look forward to in Game 7. If not, I'll be talking to you about where they fell short and talking about the Warriors and their victory if that happens. And then we'll get into some NFL news, some NFL rumors that are coming up, and then go over a little bit of some UFC stuff that's starting to pop off as well. So thank you guys as always. Love and appreciate every single one of you. Let's keep this thing growing. Please share this podcast with friends, with family members. Let them know. Let's build this, man. I'm trying to build this thing. Thank you guys as always. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.